Okay, talking more about bugs. They're bugs, Wyatt. Last video I talked about ESG and how this is a program that corporations are promoting or pushing on the people that work for them and their customers. And big part of the program is getting people to eat less meat. And they're promoting these alternatives. And I mentioned how they want people to eat bugs as an alternative to meat. And about a week after I posted that video, Tyson Foods announced, Tyson Foods is the biggest beef processor and meat processor in the country. And they are pushing this ESG program. And they announced that they are investing in an insect ingredient company. And when I first saw it, and I read a couple reports, and I read Tyson Foods press release announcing it, where they talked about, they said manufacturing byproducts into high quality insect proteins and lipids, which will primarily be used in the pet food, aquaculture, and livestock industries. So they really didn't make any mention of insects for human consumption. And they talk about, it made sense to me. They're going to take byproducts, the scraps from the packing plants, the guts, feed them to the insects, create this insect for livestock food, which is chickens. They're going to feed the bugs to the chickens, and so it kind of made sense, the partnership. And because I still live in kind of, I don't know, I forget that we no longer live in a sane world. I just thought about it rationally. But more and more people were talking about how they're going to make insects for people to eat. And I heard Feeder Flash the other day, Corbett was talking about it. And so I thought I'd go ahead and Google up and just see, how involved, or if this company is involved in making insect food for people. And they are very involved. I just Googled Protix human consumption, and I came up that in the EU, in Europe, they've been authorized yellow mealworm and crickets and grasshoppers. They're authorized to grow those for people to eat. And then if you actually go to the Protix website, it says Protix produces ingredients for feed and food for a broad range of creatures, ranging from chicken to shrimp and from pets to humans. So they are manufacturing feed for humans, which is bugs. And so what we now have is the U.S.'s largest meat processor and beef processor has invested in an insect ingredient company that is making insects for humans to eat. When that sounds insane to say, and it's weird for me to even be talking about this stuff, because it's hard to even keep a straight face when I just can't wrap my head around this stuff, because like if you have a rational brain, it's like Woodrow F. Call said, our boys ain't gonna take much to eating bugs, and I think most people are probably thinking, I'm not eating bugs. And so you got to kind of look at where they're coming from or how they're thinking about this, and I'm assuming they know that the public isn't going to want to eat bugs, but what they think, these corporations are always looking down the road. So what you really have to ask yourself is, are your kids going to want to eat bugs? Because what's been taught in schools and different books are that bugs, that by eating meat, you're destroying the planet. And the way to save the planet is to eat things like bugs. And I have a personal experience with this, because my mother actually bought, and we returned it right away. I want to make perfectly clear, but my mother bought for my son. My son likes geography and reading and learning stuff. He's really into it all. So she bought him Britannica Kids Encyclopedia. Just like we used to read in the old days, an encyclopedia. But luckily, before she gave it to him, she was thumbing through it and found a section on meat and dairy, where they say if we ate less meat and reared fewer cows, we could reduce greenhouse gases and help stop climate change. For example, if every person in the U.S. ate one fewer burger a week for a year, it would have a similar effect to taking 10 million cars off the road. And this is the same kind of made up BS that you have to assume is probably being taught in a lot of schools now. And so if you're eating one less burger a week, what are you gonna replace that with? Well, here you have it. Insect eating. Humans have eaten insects throughout the history. Globally, about 2 billion people eat them regularly. Edible insects such as mealworms are nutritious and can be farmed in large numbers. Eating insects might not appeal to us all, but they can be tasty. People say roasted mealworms have a nutty flavor, while crickets are like popcorn. So you're teaching kids now that crickets are just like popcorn, and then they're also promoting this in the same book. They're also promoting the plant-based and the lab-grown garbage also. And so you got to assume, if you look at New York City, they are really beating this into the kids' brains. They have meatless Mondays and they have vegan Fridays. They don't serve meat in the schools for at least 2 days a week. And so, when you live away from those places in rural communities, it's easy to just kind of forget and think that everybody's acting rationally about this kind of stuff. But, it's obvious that they aren't. That's Encyclopedia Britannica that they're pushing. They're pushing this idea, so you got to assume it's probably in a lot of other school books out there too. A lot of these kids are growing up, and this was a year ago, but this stuff has been taught for years now. And these kids who have grown up with this idea of eating animals bad, eating bugs good. And I think Tyson Foods is probably seeing that and realizing that there's a chance that this could be a real profitable. They obviously think this will be a profitable venture. But if you look at the market studies, which I have, of like the current market studies of if people are interested, and if you look at plant-based meat, which has been pushed constantly through the media, and they poured tons of money in advertising. If you remember, Burger King used to run an ad all through all the sports events. There was always a Burger King ad for Impossible beef or meat or whatever it's called, that they were selling. But sales of that stuff have really collapsed. There have been multiple bankruptcies of plant-based meat companies in just the past year. Beyond Meat, just constantly, their sales are constantly dropping and haven't. They saw an uptick in sales when they were new and people were trying it, but what they found that after people try it, they don't buy it anymore, and they have done nothing but lose money hand over fist. And so, if you take that and you look at the market studies about the cell cultured meat, the meat that they're going to try and grow in labs, and there's a lot of skepticism about that and concerns about the safety, and people really aren't. It's not something that people want. It's something that is being pushed on people, and they're still building a facility in Georgia. They're using taxpayer dollars to build a cell cultured meat lab place in Georgia. If you look at the plant-based stuff, they're still pushing. Bunge just is building a 500 million. Bunge is the world's largest soybean processor, and they're all in on this ESG thing too. It goes back to what their shareholders are telling them they should be doing. And so Bunge right now is building a big facility where they're going to create soy protein ingredients for this plant-based crap that nobody really wants. And if you look at the bug stuff, now we have Tyson investing in this company. ADM has invested in a company called Innova Feed, and they're building a big facility to raise bugs into. Decatur, Illinois is where that's going up at. And so really, I don't think, if you look at the market, if this actual market to meat alternatives, what it is about is it's not about consumer demand or meeting a consumer demand like markets used to have to do in investments, and that's the way businesses grew. They saw consumers wanting something, and so they created it. Now it's more about manipulating or indoctrinating consumers into thinking that they have to use these products, and in this case, eat these products. So it's really about manipulating, indoctrinating, and I think eventually forcing people to eating these products or using these products. If you look at the car industry, 5-10 years ago, you would have never thought anybody would mention banning combustion engines. But here we are, where California has apparently some plan, which is still insane, for them to talk about, but they say they're going to ban all combustion engines by a certain date. The president has talked about it too. We're going to get rid of all combustion engines, even though there's really no way that I think anyone can see that happening. But the goal is to eventually force people into these electric vehicles, and it's not hard to, it's all about carbon. It's all about reducing carbon, and that's what we have here with this insect stuff. They say this is going to reduce carbon, which is all a bunch of BS to me. But anyway, to go back to the cattle industry, what we now have is the country's biggest beef producer, processor, and they have invested in an insect ingredient company. And it's just hard for me to even wrap my head around this or talk about it, but it's not hard to imagine what comes next. You have these beef processors have been importing this cheap meat for years to try to reduce the price of ground beef. Now they own this insect ingredient company. It's not hard you have to think that eventually there could be a time when they're dumping insects into the ground beef to try to cheapen it up, and to save money, and so they don't have to process as much beef. And so for the cattle industry, I think they really have to take it seriously. I have a hard time taking any of this seriously, but this is like where we are. This is here we are. They're making insects for people to eat. So, but to take it seriously, you have to start looking at how this stuff is going to be labeled. Tyson Foods, the ag corporations run the USDA, and they have fraudulently labeled beef for years with the product of the USA label. So you have to start looking at how is this stuff going to be labeled, how is it going to be regulated, and what can we do to kind of get ahead of this thing. But anyway, here we are. But the main thing is to share it and to make sure your kids, like I said, luckily my mom thumbed through that book and we sent it right back right away. And our kids know that this is all kind of just a bunch of BS, and that's what you got to teach your kids, that this stuff, cattle are not bad for the environment. Cattle are part of the environment. And they're integral in getting people the right nutrition that they need. And not bugs eating remains and whatever else are not integral in are not a good. I can't imagine that's going to be healthy, but they don't, according USDA and FDA don't care about health anymore. They just care about doing what they're told by these corporations. So anyway, share the video, teach your kids what to eat, and subscribe, like, stay tuned, all that crap. Adios.